Hello and welcome to You'll Probably Agree. Today, as usual, we have Jeff York from the Establishing Shot, and we were talking about unconventional Christmas movies a while back, and I think Eyes Wide Shut came up, and I think they had a recent 4K copy of it come out, and I need that copy because my DVD disc rotted at a certain point when I watched the movie, and then I had to rent it on Amazon to catch like a large middle part of the film, but luckily it wasn't during the orgy scene. So that was good.
Well, they cut a lot of that anyway, so
Yeah. Well, I have the
they
unrated
covered over
edition.
it.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not sure we'll ever see what Stanley Kubrick originally cut. I'm not sure that they'll
Right.
allow us to see that, and I do mean they.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be they because yeah, this movie is now I wrote in the thumbnail now this is a Christmas movie because it is about a family that sort of almost falls apart during Christmas, which they luckily don't. But you have this happy sort of backdrop against, a relatively dark movie. But Jeff, could you give us a little explanation as to what in the world Eyes Wide Shut is and why
Sure.
you like the movie?
Well, like you said, it takes place during the Christmas season, and basically it starts with a big party scene where Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman playing real life, a real married in real life, and here they're playing a married couple as well. Dr. Bill Hartford and his wife Alice, and they go to the party of one of his business contacts and ostensibly, I guess, one of his regular patients, a man named Victor Ziegler, played by Sidney Pollack. And while they're at this party, a number of things happen that sort of lay down the template for what the film is going to be afterwards. Both of the married couple, both Alice and Bill, are sort of tempted by others. Two women tempt Bill as he's walking around, gets separated from his wife when she goes to the bar, and she ends up dancing with a gentleman at the party who is trying to basically get her to go to bed with him and sort of talk her into the idea that you don't have to be so faithful and that there's other things to be enjoyed out there in life. Then there's sort of a interesting meeting between Bill's old classmate from medical school who dropped out to become a pianist named Nick Nightingale. He's played by Todd Field, and they talk about getting together for a drink later or at some point during the season. And then finally, the last thing that sort of happens that's eventful at the party is Ziegler has a prostitute up in his bedroom, up in the upper floors of his rather luxurious mansion that he's throwing this lavish party in. We met his wife earlier, but this is a young prostitute, and she's overdosed on whatever cocktail of drugs and amphetamines or whatever that Ziegler is feeding her to get her sort of in the holiday spirit. Anyway, Bill is called to help sort of revive her, bring her back, and he does, and sort of does the doctorly thing, which is interesting because it's showing you that even though he's a guest at this party, he's not quite in the class system where he gets to just be a guest, enjoying all of the fruits of the season. He's a little bit on call. He's a little bit of in employ. It's the first sort of leveling of the, or telling you of the levels that these people operate at, and that even though Bill is very well off and lives in a nice place himself, he's kind of on call here, so he's answering to Ziegler. Anyway, then from there, of course, the big thing that happens is the couple goes home and they are getting high and they talk about life and love and their relationship. And Alice makes the stunning confession that she's fantasized about doing it with a sailor and maybe having other men potentially. And the fact that men are so stupid and sort of foolish to realize that women can run away if they want to and change, and they could leave their marriage even though they think everything is honky-dory. And the husbands are clueless, sort of with their eyes wide shut. They only see what they want to see, right? And that sort of sends Bill off on this questioning of his marriage, his ego, his prowess, frankly, his sort of veracity as a lover. And he kind of goes out in the dark city looking for sort of some action to sort of make up for the hurt that Alice has laid at his feet with her confession and her sort of dismissal of him. And from there, all kinds of drama ensues. But that's one of the basic premise.
Yeah, very well put. It's a difficult movie.
A lot happens very early and sort of sets the stage, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of a difficult movie to surmise as is most of Kubrick's films.
Yeah,
Because you can never just say, "Oh, well, what happened, like this happens, that happens, and then that's the story."
right.
It's like his movies have a very long, kind of different narrative arc, because you have most movies where it begins and then you have some setup and then you have your turning point and then your climax and you're done. Kubrick likes to have a whole lot of setup, and then he gets to the turning point in the climax. Except when he has things happen in his movies, they go very, very hard. It's not just that David Bowman goes, from space to an unknown place. He basically goes through hell. It's not like Jack Torrance is someone who goes from a good man to a murderer. He's basically a psycho who gets even worse. And it's like this movie's about a couple where the wife gaslights the husband to an enormous degree. And there's that first scene, like you were saying, where they're just smoking pot. They're in the bedroom, and Alice says to Bill, how do you know I don't fantasize about other women? Because at this party they're at, you had Alice who was with this Hungarian guy who, I mean, you could tell like rich people can get away with whatever they want because the way he talks to her, he
Yes.
like steals her drinks out of it, and then dances with her and says, "Oh well, I don't, so what if you're with your husband? You could be with me." And you're like, man, that's something you can't really say unless you have a ton of money and you can kind of swing that around. Uh, but they have this thing where it's like, well, you're talking to these three girls, I was talking to this one guy, and then their jealousy begins to emerge. And when you get jealousy, you get people who want to screw with your head. So Alice says to Bill, for a second, I thought about completely ruining our lives because I caught eye contact with the sailor who walked past me and I wanted to have sex with him and then, ruin everything. Now, I don't get why she wanted to risk blowing her life up. Did she want to did she want to just like take Bill's money by leading it to a divorce and having the kid, and then she would have been able to live off of what he has without having to be with him? I'm not sure. So that didn't quite come across clearly.
Well, my take on
Yeah.
that, Mike, is that maybe, and this is what I think is part of the wit of Kubrick
Yeah.
in a lot of these films is, he casts the big Hollywood couple in this, and they're both beautiful people. And Tom Cruise is ostensibly the biggest star in Hollywood at the time, in many respects, I think still is on certain levels. And yet here he's kind of playing a doofus. He's a very successful doctor. They live in a rich man, penthouse or whatever it is, and have a great life. And they hobnob with the movers and shakers of the world. And they're pretty young. I mean, Sidney Pollack and his wife are in their 60s, where it looks like, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman here as the character of Bill and Alice might even still be in their late 30s. But I think as I watch this movie over and over again, I've watched it many times because it's one of my favorites. I think he's a little bit of adult. For starters, I mean, he doesn't have a real grasp of everything that's going on. The very first thing he says is, "Have you seen my wallet?" And I think it's also interesting that his name is Bill. Like he's always putting money values on stuff like, I will pay for this, or I could buy that, or this and the other thing. And, oh, money's no cost. I can get this costume late at night. And he thinks that his money is entree into all of the success he has in the world and further success he can have. And yet I think he doesn't realize that he is operating on this sort of bourgeois, here's a good level, maybe upper middle class, if you want to call it that, or lower high class. But he ain't touching the real power. He ain't touching the real people with money and connections and all that kind of stuff. He thinks he can, but he blithely walks into that party thinking that he can bluff his way in there. And it's dangerous from the get-go, and he doesn't have enough smarts to hightail it. Even when he's told to leave, he doesn't leave. and stays too late. He goes back. He keeps doing stuff that they tell him not to. And I think he thinks that he can somehow skate through this all because he's a doctor and he's got money and he's good looking and he's charming. And those girls want to just sleep with him because, well, he looks like Tom Cruise, But I think I get from this movie is that Alice has grown weary of him. I think she finds him to be a little bit boring, sort of full of himself without really earning it, maybe coasting. As one person famously said many, many years ago, show me a beautiful woman and I'll show you a man who's tired of having sex with her.
Mm-hmm.
So, she's probably used to everything that he's going to bring to the party now because he's not exactly, Mr. Deep Thinker. And she's probably willing to potentially endanger that or at least get the upper hand, I think, in the power struggle that is often a case in relationships and marriages. And I think she's also maybe potentially harboring some deeper secrets that, has she slept with somebody already? Is she involved with the cult that, the mask is put on the pillow when he comes home that one time? Is she part of it? Does she know about it? Was she informed about it? Or are they just breaking into his home to leave that mask there for him to see? It seems like it's a very dangerous proposition if she's completely innocent. So I don't know. I'm not sure. But I think that in some respects, this is an examination of many things that are all supposedly, the preoccupations of successful men: power, sex, status, and money. And I think in all of those, Dr. Bill is being taken down a number of rungs with every one of those topics. And he's not really sure it's happening, but it is. And he's, by the end, just sort of flummoxed and left, sort of with his mouth agape at Ziegler's house. And, then he's not even paying attention to his daughter being taken away by two men in the toy store. So I think he's just got his eyes wide shut. He sees what he wants to believe, sees what he thinks is his life, and it really isn't. And his wife isn't what at least he thinks she is either.
Yeah, and the movie's kind of interesting where it questions the sanctity of marriage in a way, because when you're with someone for so long, a lot of the sexual attraction is gone. I mean, that's abundantly clear. Like in the beginning, they're getting ready to go to this party and she's on the toilet and he's, getting ready to go. And it's like, yeah, at this point, you're just
She asks him how he looks and he says, great. Yeah. And she goes, you're not even looking. See, right there is the key right there. Yeah. Is he's not even paying attention to her. And, the first thing we see of her is her dropping her dress. Yeah. She doesn't want to wear that dress, and she's completely naked underneath. And she's about 6 foot tall. And she looks like a gazelle, and she's gorgeous. And Bill is looking right past her. He's just interested in finding his billfold, getting the name right of the nanny, getting to the party on time, and impressing the movers and shakers, and maybe he can get some more clients out of it. But he's not paying attention to her.
Yeah,
not really.
Yeah. Because at that point, you've seen each other naked and done everything for so many years. Right. And that's where the flame comes out. And that's where the movie kind of says, well, is marriage really the end all be all? Is it something that we should all have? Or maybe, because we're all adults, we're all humans, we have sexual desires. Maybe sleeping with other people isn't such a bad idea.
It's interesting because the movie, though, ends up being very moral, even though it doesn't seem to be. It's about amoral people, and amoral people who can get away with all kinds of things, from prostitutes up at the nice Christmas party to topless prostitutes probably walking around the other Christmas party. That's the real Christmas party. As well as, other things with like people disappearing or getting beat up or, if you know who was in that party, as Ziegler says at the end, you won't be able to sleep at night, suggesting it's government officials and big people who, we're supposed to look up to and admire, and maybe they're Satanists or, part of the Illuminati or whatever you want to call that kind of weird cult that seems to be practicing out there in the Rothschilds-esque mansion. But I think it's a moral film because every time he wants to have sex in this movie, something prevents him from having sex. Mm-hmm. And it's a good thing it does. Yeah. Because we find out that the prostitute who he wanted to sleep with ends up HIV positive. If he had sex and gotten caught having sex at the party and gone to that extreme where he was now taking advantage of the party for his own peccadillos and selfish urges, he would have already been naked and probably been killed. and maybe been delayed at the very least and humiliated because of that. He keeps sort of wanting to have sex to sort of show that he's a man, show that he's got prowess, and that he's as tough and strong as that sailor is, or any other man that comes in his way. I mean, he's even knocked over by those college kids as they're walking down the hall. I mean, he's not exactly Mr. Stalwart, but every time he gets close to having sex, which is his mission throughout this movie, he's sort of saved from a fate worse than death, because sex here is attached to some very bad things, whether it's HIV or occult or sort of endangerment of his physical body, and by being a interloper at that party.
Yeah, it's almost like a Mission Impossible for him.
It is. Well, and that's funny too at the end when she says we need to do one thing. What's that? Fuck. Because he's gone through the whole movie not being able to get off, and we're not really feel good about sex and good about himself and all that kind of way, shape, and form. But I think it goes much deeper than that, because I think at the end of the day, it is really about sort of power and even mirroring. I mean, I think, he thinks he's rich, but he's not. Compared to Ziegler, he's not rich. He thinks he's rich, and we see him in his rich, powerful penthouse and, getting the money ready and then going to the house call, which he does, where it's funny because both of those people in there look like he and Nicole. Thomas Gibson was cast because he looks like Tom Cruise. So he's seen sort of another side of, like, here's this doppelganger of me. So it's like, I keep thinking I'm special, but I'm not. Kind of thing for poor Bill. And he goes around everywhere thinking he can flash his credentials, flash his ID. He can get in and look at a dead body in the morgue because he's a doctor. He can flash this money in front of Alan Cumming, and maybe he'll get some information from him, like he's an ersatz detective. He thinks he's more powerful than he is. And the person who's really powerful in this is not only Red Cloak, who's remove your clothes and tell me the other password. And is that Ziegler? I think maybe it is. I think there's a couple of clues that it might be Ziegler's sort of alter ego, a Mr. Hyde, a very nasty version of him, when he's telling him at the end, you might not be able to sleep at night, or, there are things that you shouldn't be seeing there, and that wasn't for you. And then, I don't know about, I'm sorry to go on, I'll just say this one last thing, Mike. But I think one of the things about Stanley Kubrick movies, and this because you're a big Kubrick fan as well, is he doesn't do anything accidentally. Everything is there intentionally, whether it's a sign in the background, the rainbow colors throughout, over the rainbow, what's at the end of the rainbow, this fantasy that Bill has, all these different places. But one of the things that's fascinating about it too is when they're doing that ritual in that big red, rug, and Red Cloak is sitting there, and he does that tap with the stick, right, as part of the ritual. Oh, it's so frightening. It's terrifying. But then when Ziegler is talking to Bill in his parlor where the pool table is, it's a red tablecloth. So there's a red rug surface down there, and he's playing around with the cue ball, and he taps it on the table, not once but twice. Twice. Another time. Which is echoing Red Cloak's, sort of ritual thing.
Yeah, his staff.
The staff. That's not there for an accident. I mean, I know we're sort of led to believe that the two people who are up in the balcony with the masks on, who look at him and he kind of nods them, that might be Ziegler and his wife. And maybe it is. I mean, I'm not saying that this is fast and certain, but I kind of think that in many respects, Ziegler is the host of the Christmas party that's for the people who think they're special and think they're rich and think they have power. And then he's also the host, albeit a much different side of him, for the people who can get away with murder, get away with all this shit they're getting away with that. And he's the host of that much more substantial, much more special Christmas party.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, he ends up embracing his family. And I think that's kind of what ultimately saves him. So yeah, it's about a family getting together during Christmas. So there, it is a Christmas movie.
Well, I got to ask you this, Mike, though. Let me ask you this, because I know we're jumping about, and people hopefully have seen this, or they want to see it and maybe look for some of these things. But I remember seeing when I was watching the movie that there are certain people that, he sets up for us to make us wonder why they're there. Again, I thought originally that Red Cloak was probably the man who was dancing with Nicole Kidman, because he seems foreign and he's tall and very seemingly thin. But then I think it's Ziegler at the end, because of the fact that he's playing with the ball and he's kind of saying, hey, it's always good until it isn't. And you can just see him saying, and it isn't, because right now I'm going to be this badass guy who's the head of this unit of the Illuminati or whatever. But there is a scene early on in the party where they're at the regular party, not the nasty one, and you see these two men sitting there, and they're sitting there not in focus, but not out of focus either. And they're sitting there, and they're two middle-aged to older men. Those are the two men who show up in the Toy Story at the end, and they take away the
that
little
would
girl.
be a Toy Story to see. I'm just imagining Woody and
I
Buzz
got you a
going
Toy
to
Story
an
5
orgy.
for you.
You see, like,
Woody!
see like Bo Peep in the middle of an orgy.
50 and beyond, let me tell you.
Yeah.
But they take away the little girl at the end because they're also not paying attention. Or I wonder, is that part of the agreement now that, as far as maybe being part of the group or getting away with not being killed when he was maybe supposed to be sacrificed. And so the girl who stood up and said, I'll take his place, that maybe the child is sort of, I don't know, a gift to the child trafficking or whatever kind of insidious things that they might have in store there. But I think that's an interesting question too, because first of all, if you're not even paying attention to the two men in the party, you notice that these two men take away the child at the end. And then if you watch it a second time or even notice the first time, it's those two men in the party. So they're following Bill and Alice around. And maybe they were there. Maybe the reason they're in the Toy Story is to reconcile their marriage, but give up the child. I don't know. I mean, that's pretty cynical and pretty awful. But, when it comes to blood oaths and, the price of fame and the price of the elite and all the things we've read about and supposed, in those kind of cults and the cliches of the Illuminati, it's not unexpected.
Well, the thing is, it might be even worse in real life. They might not be having like crazy costume parties where everyone's just banging each other on the pool table, but they could be on Epstein Island.
Well, see, that's interesting too, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't seem that different from the kind of stuff that we've learned about all that and this wide swath of celebrities and rich people and movers and shakers. And what are they doing down there? And some people say, well, it's just another party to go to. No, you can go to plenty of parties any night of the week if you're living in Hollywood or New York. You don't have to you don't have to fly 7 hours away to the Virgin Islands for some. And you've seen the pictures of that place that he had too. It didn't look very special to me. I can't imagine going there for a party. It looks like like a sandals resort almost or something.
Yeah, but imagine being stuck there and there's nowhere to go.
I know.
You can't call the cops, can't do anything. You're fucked if you're there.
Yeah, that one girl they said tried to swim away, and they went out and got her in a boat.
Wow,
and brought her back. So yeah, I mean, but that's what I think is
to bomb it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I think that's interesting about this movie is why Kubrick made it. And I mean, there's been rumors that forever and a day that Kubrick was forced to shoot the moon landing if that was faked, and there's been movies like Capricorn One about that, which is funny. But who knows how much of that to believe at all, even if it's a whiff of scandal. But I think at the same time, when you are dealing with powerful people in Hollywood, people who are making decisions, and again, they are the elite of the elite, and we know for forever and a day that celebrities have gotten away with all kinds of stuff. I mean, from the heyday of the golden era of Hollywood to modern day and everything else. I mean, the police let OJ go a number of times when they brought over there because he had beaten his wife because he was OJ. So even, on a grade C level of celebrity that he was experiencing when he was just a sportscaster, a fading football hero, he was treated with kid gloves and given a lot of rope. But here, I mean, I'm not sure if all of that is intentional. My guess is most of it is. And I also wonder, like the sex scenes, I'll bet you that there were probably some things that Kubrick shot that were ugly, that were as awful as like the bear costume going down on the man and the shiny and stuff like that. Because I think it looked a little tame, like it was pretty much conventional sex with people just watching. I'm sure there was other stuff that was like, okay, that's something to write home about. You don't see that every day.
I can just imagine Tom Cruise slipping on the baby oil.
Yeah. Well, you hear about that kind of stuff and everything else going on, and it's a scary world, and sometimes when you get to really that top 1%, where money and notoriety and fame is all part and parcel of your, sort of whatever your money is and what your trade is. to trade for whatever goods and services.
Mhm.
It's crazy. It's crazy out there stuff. But that's what I loved about this movie is Bill
Mm.
thinks he's so rich and so smart and so capable. I'm a doctor. He always says, I'm a doctor. Like doctors always say, it's doctor, this and that when they're making a dinner reservation because they think they're above everybody else being a doctor. And certainly Bill thinks that here all the time. And yet he's not in that upper tier. And he's reminded of that, even though it takes him a number of lessons.
Yeah, it's funny how he walks around and like he'll bother like people in the middle of the night and he'll be like, "No, it's okay. I'm a doctor." I'm like, "Yeah, but you're not a cop. Like, why are
Right,
you
right.
actually bothering me, you weirdo?" But whatever. I mean, if someone was paying me like triple the rental price for a costume, I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, whatever. As long as I get my money." But yeah, it's almost like cartoonish how many like women like throw themselves at Bill because like let's just say we don't know who Tom Cruise is and they just hire this good looking
Right.
actor. We'd be like, okay, would that many people throw themselves at someone even if they were that good looking instantaneously? Maybe as an go, I wouldn't know, but maybe they would.
Now that's not true, Mike. But I will say
As
this.
a joke,
No,
but
no,
yeah.
but I think look at it this way. Beautiful women get hit on all the time, and they don't do anything except stand there looking pretty. They're genetically blessed, and they know how to
Yeah,
carry themselves, and they're fashionable, and they've learned to work it, which
yeah.
is great. And there's nothing wrong with that, knowing that you're attractive and you can make yourself as attractive as possible. Wonderful. With men, I'm not so sure, but I mean, I think at the same time, he is good looking. He is a doctor. He has money. He thinks he's hit the trifecta, and in some respects, and in many parts of the world, that is enough. He thinks it's enough, but it's not. He doesn't have the true cachet, the true entree that he thinks he does. And when he tries to do that, he's constantly put in his place. I also, by the way, wonder too, Mike. It would be an easy thing to edit, though I doubt it was edited. But you wonder, like when he's handed that note at the gate, like
Mhm.
I wonder if it was a much nastier note that they changed
Ah,
it. Because you could easily edit that kind of scene in there. And
yeah.
nobody's ever talked about what wasn't done or what Kubrick's cut was that wasn't here. I mean, I know that Kubrick said that felt happy with most of what he had cut, and
Mhm.
Cruise said when he's going around promoting it, saying, this is the film that Stanley wanted to make. Now that doesn't mean that every scene is exactly the scene, but it's probably the script because Kubrick worked on the script, of course, too. And you can't get away from the structure that he's got going on. But I'm just wondering sometimes about certain details.
Yeah, well, there is kind of a myth of whether Kubrick finished the movie or not
Hmm.
because it released like slightly before his or after his death.
Right.
Uh, there is this. I remember this one story I read about, and luckily I ran into it where Arlie Ermy, who's the drill instructor in Full Metal Jacket, he phoned Kubrick and Kubrick expressed his despondency over Eyes Wide Shut. He told Arlie Ermy that he thought it was a piece of shit
Hmm.
and that he was disgusted with it and that the critics were going to have him for lunch. And he said that Cruise and Kidman had their way with him, which were his exact words. But then you had someone else who was Kubrick's friend who said that's not accurate as to Kubrick's reflection on the film. And I know that his wife Vivian, or was that his daughter? I'm not sure. I think Vivian's his daughter. I can't remember his wife's name, but she's the singer at the bar at the end
Right.
of
Right.
As of Glory. But she helped I think with the final completion of the movie. Yeah, I have the unrated quote unquote DVD of the movie. But I still don't know what was cut because there's like people who were like digitally inserted to block
Right.
other
Right.
sex scenes and stuff like that.
I mean,
Um,
my guess is some
yeah.
dialogue and some moments. I mean, there's some occasionally when Bill is talking to the woman who is telling him he's in danger, it's clearly from a booth. It does not sound like it's voiced in the scene of the context of that hallway as they're walking. Now that could be intentional. I mean, the source material that this is taken from translates to dream story. And I think there is a dream-like quality to much of this that doesn't seem entirely real. I mean, even Kubrick notoriously didn't like to leave London, so he shot all the New York
Mhm.
scenes that he was directing
The backstreet.
in the
Yeah.
backs a lot of
Rear projection, yeah.
Yeah, rear
I gotta
projection,
admit, I didn't
which
even notice.
yeah,
I
I
thought it
mean
looked
it's
great.
pretty good. I mean, he makes it look good, but at the same time, it's a little bit unusual because like the streets are a little barren, and New
Mm,
York is usually a little tighter and smaller and
depends
cluttered.
where you are, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, where he's supposedly walking around Manhattan, it
Well,
seems
it's
a
a
little
very
bit.
nice district. There would
Yeah,
be a lot,
very
yeah.
nice. Yes. But I don't know. I will say this for me, what showed up on screen is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's a great movie. I think it gives you so much to think about. I remember the original thought from people when it came out in '99 was, well, it's supposed to be a sex thriller, erotic thriller, and it's not very erotic or sexy, other than a couple shots of naked Nicole. It's like, it's about sex, but it's not, and it's an erotic thriller on some levels, but it's not about sex being shot for us to be titillated by. Quite the opposite. I think it was the era of AIDS. It's the
Mhm.
tragedy of complacency in life, and in being lulled into a sense of security, and false security at that, by money and status. Uh, Getting used to somebody, as you said, everybody gets used to making love and the person naked in front of them, and all other kinds of things about power. So I don't know. I found it to be a very fascinating story about sex, but sex is also connected to power and illusion and fantasy and all different kinds of ways of saying that you have and cannot be touched.
Yeah, and the movie is, I think Kubrick's wife put it that she said the movie was never about sex; it was about fear.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So
Fear of losing his life, fear of losing his life, fear of not mattering, fear of not being in the know, fear of not knowing, fear of getting killed for sex,
yeah,
dying for sex. Exactly.
yeah, and the movie sort of what it does with sex is interesting is that it removes the eroticism from it and kind of views it in this very kind of objective, intimidating way. Which is funny because a lot of American cinema, America is a lot like that. There's a stigmatization behind sex, but not violence, which I
Yes.
always find is a little weird. Like you can watch The Walking Dead and you can see a guy's head get crushed in, which they literally do show. Like the guy's head just looks like spaghetti. And as
Mhm.
someone who's literally seen a decapitated corpse before, it was pretty accurate. But and I'll get into how I saw that later. It was dude who like fell off a motorcycle on the highway. But you could see something unnatural and disturbing as that. And let's say the flip side of it, you could see something like James Bond, where people are getting killed, but they're inserting jokes like, "Oh, it's okay
Mhm.
that they're getting killed."
Yeah.
But then you have something like Eyes Wide Shut and, "Oh, that movie's taboo. We shouldn't see that because people have sex in it." Like, yeah, they have sex. How the hell do you think you exist? Sex is totally natural. It's kind of like they say in the scene from The People versus Larry Flint, where he's showing large projections of naked women, and then he's seeing large projections of the Vietnam War, and he goes, "Well, what's worse, sex or war?"
Yeah. What's
And
more offensive?
yeah, and this movie kind of takes that American viewpoint of sex, that negative viewpoint, and it kind of removes the joy and the sensuality from it. Like the only time we feel really titillated is when Nicole Kidman is getting undressed. And even then we have like the flashbacks of like the dream of her having sex with the sailor. And even that's not, as like, oh wow, it's Nicole Kidman naked. It's more like, oh, this woman's really screwing with her mind, hit this guy's mind. And this is one of the best movies about gaslighting I've seen in a while,
Well, I
because
also think that Tom Cruise's character Bill is
yeah,
gaslighting himself. He's lying to
yeah,
himself through the whole thing. I mean, he is out looking to prove his manhood, prove that he can be as attractive to another person as Alice was, and get laid by finding somebody else, just like she said she could have so easily slept with that sailor.
mhm,
And yet he's brushing up against danger at every turn. And I think to some degree he's immature. And it's funny because they cast him and he's fairly young as Dr. Bill here. Maybe you almost think that could be an older character who would be more of a
mm,
peer of Ziegler's, but I think it works in the sense that Bill is immature. And I think by
mm,
having a young, youthful looking actor like Tom Cruise, that comes through all the more because he doesn't realize that it's not about your wife leaving you because she finds some hunky sailor fuckable,
Mhm.
or that she's has fantasies that maybe border on. I think she wakes up and talks about she was having a rape fantasy or something like that, and he
Mhm.
can't deal with that. Uh, Real sexuality, to your point, is not only natural and a beautiful thing, but it's based on intimacy.
Mhm.
Otherwise you're just fucking,
Yeah.
and anybody can do that 10 times, and then it gets to be like, well, I'm just fucking again. But if you have sex with somebody who means something to you and you're intimate with, then it is lovemaking. Then it's truly the way I think everybody should be having sex or wants to have sex ultimately, because you're adding intimacy to the equation, not only intimacy physically, but you're already in the head and heart of that person as well as their body. And Bill doesn't get that through this. He thinks he can go to an orgy and just get laid and then see, I feel better about myself and I even
Yeah.
the tables, and I kind of showed myself that I can play Alice's game. And it's like, man, go home and be nice to your wife and
Mhm.
love her and don't take her for granted. And when she says, "How do I look, honey?" A woman never asks that without wanting to know how she looks. Your opinion still matters to her. And here she is, dropping trowel, looking great, easy and comfortable with him enough, feeling intimate enough with her husband that she can go to the bathroom in front of him. Most couples do, but not all. And he's not even paying attention
Yeah.
because he's all into the surface things that don't make any goddamn bit of difference to anybody but to him. And even
Yeah.
to the Zieglers of the world, the stuff that Bill thinks is his currency for making it in the world, it's not the real power is currency, not at all.
Yeah, it's materialistic things that seem to make him happy rather than emotional things. It's
They
about
don't
him
care that
going
he's
to the Ziegler's
right.
party and being like, "Look at my pretty wife. Look at my nice suit.
Yep.
Look at how well I'm
But then
doing."
he's treated as the help.
Yeah.
Excuse, can you come with us? And that's not like, hey, you're my buddy. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
you're a doctor. Bring this gal back. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to somehow sneak her out the back so my wife and my guests don't see that I've been canoodling up here with, like a bad husband, a betraying husband. But see, if his wife's in the call too, then it's like, well, this is just the appetizer before the real party.
Yeah, and I wonder, is she in the cult because, like, he left
I
his
think that's the
mask.
girl. Well, that's the girl that saved him.
Yeah, well,
She's the one who ends up dead in the paper.
it's funny you mentioned that, especially with her ADR because, in my research, and who knows, because people write bullshit
Sure, sure.
online. Apparently in 2019, it was revealed that the voice of the woman was voiced by Kate Blanchett.
Yes, I
Yeah,
read that. Isn't that
yeah,
funny?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, she doesn't really say much when she's in that bathroom, other than sort of, do you know your name? And she says her name and stuff.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, the whole thing has a otherworldliness to it, but it is another world. It is another world that Bill does not see. He thinks he sees it all. He knows he's rich and powerful and a doctor, and just again, you're still the working class, man. You're
yeah.
working the party.
Yeah, well, the sad thing is they aren't the Illuminati sort of echelon, but they're almost there.
Right.
And I think, like, Bill kinda resists taking, that position where he realizes, "Oh, I'm not crazy like Ziegler is,
Right.
I'm more of a regular guy." One of the most telling lines in the movie right before, she says they should fuck is that, uh, Tom Cruise says to Nicole Kidman, "So we're gonna be together forever." And then she goes, "I don't like that word. I don't think about forever." And I'm like, yeah, that's very true. Because there's a lot of people who are married where it's like, I'll be together for this person forever. And maybe one of them is thinking, I can't
Well,
wait to
see,
be
to
dead
that
so I
point,
can go
Mike,
to
I'm not.
heaven and go to a crazy heaven orgy and bang
Mhm.
Marilyn Monroe or something up there.
Well, see, to that point, I'm not sure that Dr. Bill has learned much then. If he
Yeah.
still thinks that terms like that can be tossed about as real words. Um, it's interesting too, because I think Kubrick also does other things which are very cleverly insidious throughout this. Um, for example, the daughter of the man who's running the costume thing, played by Lily Sobieski, it looks like she might be underage. Like
Mhm.
she's maybe at best a high schooler, and yet she's being farmed out by her father as a prostitute. There's the two Asian businessmen are there. I think they're both wearing eye makeup, like they maybe were dressed up as women or somewhere along the line too. That this is all part of this sort of secret uh, extra that you get at the costume shop. Um, I mean, who's to say that that guy didn't call the Illuminati and say, "Hey, this guy's coming"? I mean, I know they
Mm.
connected it to the cab, which is how dumb is Bill? Keep the cab running. Here's $200. I'm a doctor.
And he
You can
tears
just.
it in half. He's like, "I gotta give you this
I
in
know
half."
he's such
If
an
I was a
idiot.
cab
Oh my
driver, I'd
God,
be like,
he's so
"No, you just
naive.
ruined
It's
your butt."
crazy,
Yeah, you just
crazy.
ruined a
But
dollar bill, you idiot. Like,
oh my goodness.
for 100 or whatever the
Um,
hell he had. God, he
but
tossed so much money around. Did they have ATMs back then? I don't remember.
not. I don't know about that. I think they did. Maybe they just started to become commonplace then.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating that he's just sort of you know basically usurped at every turn. I mean, he tries to he walks into every place like he owns the place. Like, I can do this and I can get this information, I can get that, and then somehow it turns bad on him, and he's kind of walked away with his tail tucked between this. That's why I think that somehow, without necessarily having to show it exactly in the narrative, that somehow maybe after Ziegler explained everything to him, he said, and because we're going to let you live and maybe brush up against us and have a chance to be one of us, we only ask that you give us your child, because
Mm.
that's the cost of entry. You need to make reparations for screwing things up and all this stuff. I don't know, but it's if nothing else, he's still not paying attention at the end the way he wasn't through the rest of the movie when the child has walked away with those two gentlemen at the toy store.
And the movie's kind of apropos of Tom and Nicole's relationship, because it does seem like Tom was sort of the clueless one. Like, he thought he could probably have Nicole stay in the Church of Scientology and do whatever the hell he says. And he kind of got a reality check, learned that he didn't do that. And
Right.
here's a little odd thing I noticed. When he got his Academy Award, you notice how, like, this is Tom fucking Cruise, yet his honorary Oscar is like at this kind of like closed door events, and ever since like him and his breakup with Nicole, you don't see him at the Oscars much. It's like I feel like that part of the community kind of drifted apart from him,
Mhm.
because Nicole might have been, I don't know, like she might have been the sensible one. I mean, there was those photos of her
Well,
waving her
she's
arms up when she got the divorce papers.
right, right.
But yeah,
I think by him being in Scientology, he's learned to be a little more guarded because they've come after Scientology and him with it as well.
yeah.
And there's questions about his marriages, and are these candidates being set up in sort of a contractual thing? Who knows? They always say terrible things about people in Hollywood. Some of them may be true, some of them may be ridiculous, but nonetheless, I think he's a private man, and I think he's become more private as he's sort of paid a price for the Scientology thing. Now, with the Governor's Award too, those, it's weird that the Academy doesn't really show those. You'd think they would
Mhm.
show them on HBOs. I mean, you can see clips from them on YouTube, which is great, but even on the Academy website, they don't have the entire thing back to back,
Mhm.
all of the ceremony with all the commentary and the introductions and everything else. And then even on the Oscars, they don't even show clips from it, which I thought they for sure would. Although I'll bet you dollars to donuts that Tom Cruise presents Best Picture this year. He's done it a number of times already, being the biggest star in Hollywood. But I'll bet you this year, because they'll say, and we gave out these Governor's Awards. These are the people, and here to present Best Picture
Mhm.
is one of those winners, Tom Cruise, and he'll get a standing ovation, and he'll announce only every one battle after another, and
You better.
he'll go home. Well, it's looking like it's going to win in a walk. It seems, but it's
You never
so far
know.
winning most of the things. Although there's two others that may be in play, and a lot can happen between now and then, but we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
Sinners and Hamnet, I think, are the only possible topplers, but I think right now the question isn't whether one battle or after another will win. It's really how many nominations they'll get and how many Oscars can it win.
I hope it wins them all, damn it. But yeah, I love that movie, but I'm a PTA fan. So, and the thing, it was funny when I went in seeing that movie, I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I thought Phantom Thread was just okay. I thought Licorice Pizza was very good, but it still kind of felt like he was kind of playing his greatest hits in a way.
Mhm.
And I couldn't even get through Inherent Vice. So I'm just going, all right, I hear all this praise before. And then I saw the movie, and it's like one of the most original, hilarious comedies. That's also a very political film that I see at the same time. And it's like
Sure,
a movie
sure,
it's like a lot like a Kubrick film. You can't
sure.
put it into words. People go, what's it about?
Well,
I'm like,
yeah.
Civil War, I guess.
And I think that Paul Thomas Anderson is like a lot of great filmmakers, including Kubrick, where it really has, you can feel him throughout it. I
Yeah.
mean, no matter who he has shooting it or is cast in it already, there's this care and thoroughness and smarts and cleverness. I mean, I think people forget how witty Kubrick is in his movies. He's
Mhm.
very witty, even when he's being sneaky and dangerous or whatever like that. There's a lot of wit to it. This one has that wit to it as well. I mean, I think that it's interesting that the six or whatever the stars that are throughout Ziegler's home are
Mhm.
stars that are often found in pagan rituals or Satanists
Mhm.
sort of rituals. So it's funny because a lot of holiday rituals and things like that are based on pagan kind of stuff. Anyhow, the separation between God and the devil is sometimes a thin one and questioned, and where the power lies between them. And there's a lot of wit in those kind of things here that they just like Christmas decorations. But they're not, and some of the things that, like I love it when he's talking to Alan Cumming and
Mhm.
he's becoming very buddy with him, intimate, because he wants to get the information, like he's being some sort of really smart detective. And Alan Cumming thinks he's coming on to him.
Alan Cumming
He's
thinks he's
he's
coming.
flirting with him like he's like, well, I've known plenty of doctors who like to sometimes scat about with clerks and bellhops and such, and just it's playing his comedy on another level right there, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
So
he's the director of Doctor Strangelove, which is
oh
like
yeah.
one of the
Well, and
best.
The Shining has so much wit throughout it, and just I mean,
Yeah,
how many people can make you jump in your seat from just Wednesday appearing on the screen? The term
yeah,
Wednesday, of the bong gong.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and like I always thought that Jack Nicholson was like maybe intentionally or unintentionally funny in that scene.
Hmm.
Like when his wife tells him about the room, the lady in whatever room that is,
Right,
and then like they cut to him and he just looks like he's hammered, although he had like two
right,
sips of whiskey. And he's
right,
like, "Are you
right.
out of your fucking mind?" And just the way his face looks, I can't help but giggle in a fucked up kind of way. Uh, but with this film, what I really like is that he shows how couples play games with each other,
Hmm.
and at the end of the day, it's like, are you going to be able to win that game by not doing the thing, by not cheating on your wife,
Hmm.
And did she ever cheat with this husband? We don't know. And it's also sort of like, as you were talking, I was thinking about this is like a detective story where the detective never figures out the case and is always behind because he's way out
Hmm.
of his element. He thinks he can figure all this stuff out. And it's like, no, dude, you're just some regular doctor. Just, stop your inquiries, go about your life, move on. You should have never been at that party.
See, I think the movie is about many things, including one word that you don't hear very often used to describe it. But I think this movie is about hubris.
Hmm.
I think it's about the hubris of people who think they have power and money and uh, put themselves above other people.
Yeah.
And as much as Ziegler and the people out at that fancy schmancy, orgy party are putting themselves above anybody else who has a Christmas party, include people who are at the swankiest Christmas party in town, but the real party is the after party.
Yeah.
Um, Tom Cruise thinks he's above his wife. He thinks he's above everybody he meets. He thinks he's, superior to all of them, and he's so grossly inferior. His
Hmm.
wife, I think, is slamming back at him because I think she resents his holier than thou. I'm a doctor. I've got money. I'm, invited to this party. I don't know why, just because I'm cool or handsome or easily smiling and charming and all that kind of stuff. And I think in some respects, Cooper cast Tom Cruise because he gets by on that Tom Cruise charm a
Hmm.
lot. All
Hmm.
he has to do is smile and laugh. I mean, did you know that? Well, who's the guy from Jeffrey Katzenberg, when he
Uh-huh.
was running Disney and they were doing the animation for Aladdin, he instructed them to make Aladdin look like Tom Cruise because Tom Cruise is the big male star, and he wanted everybody likes Tom Cruise in that. I want him, even though he's a thief and he's a bad guy and all this. When he smiles, you forgive Tom Cruise everything because of that great smile, and that's kind of what I think Kubrick is cast here in a way.
Yeah, and Kubrick kind of saw the facade behind, like, I mean, I don't think it was intentional, but it's kind of like, oh, you see the facade behind Cruise's character.
Right,
What's Bill really like? Bill
right.
is not like Tom Cruise. And it's funny because this movie is like totally like the anti Tom Cruise movie before Tom Cruise cruised. You know, uh, this. this was the movie where he's not the action star. He doesn't figure out the problem. He's
Right.
not the brightest
He's not the
guy.
smartest guy in the room. You're right.
Yeah, like, I mean, of course, he's intelligent. He went to fricking
Right.
med school and passed it and is, doing fantastic. But he doesn't understand when things are going on around him. His eyes
Right.
are wide shut,
Yep.
while his wife's eyes seem to be more wide open because she's a little more clever than him. And they don't really ever reveal what Alice does in the movie.
No, and they she's still a little bit of for lack of a better term, I think she's a little bit of a symbol, whether it's Lilith from literature or just the femme fatale, even to some
Yeah.
degree here. But she's a sexual woman who is beautiful and seems very smart and capable, but she also contains a lot of power. Even when she's being come on by the Hungarian guy, she's saying, "No, I'm married and I'm not going to do this." And
Yeah.
he puts on the full court press. And she resists his charms, even though she's interested in, maybe mostly interested in just letting him know that even though he thinks he's going to get her in bed, she's not going to let him. Because that's the thing, is the women have the power, and even I think towards the end, to your point about her saying, let's not say that forever and let's do this. I think she's still managing the relationship. She's running the show. And, it's also interesting, the mirrors, there's always these duplications and doublings of stuff here. And, that scene where, they showed in the trailer where, he goes up to her, she's standing naked in front of the mirror and he's kissing her. Again, he's naively into her, just kissing her shoulder and all that and like getting to it. And she's like looking at herself and she doesn't look happy. She doesn't look like she's even into what he's doing to her. It looks like, do I do this again? How many more nights am I going to be here? It doesn't play well. And then I
Same
love
old Nick every day, just tired of it. Yeah.
So I think those kind of using the mirrors to reflect either somebody who's very similar but not, or somebody who's very similar and you don't realize it, or somebody who is maybe only having the truth be told to themselves in that mirror image, like she's telling herself there.
Yeah, and the funniest thing, you were mentioning something earlier that made me think, like, these guys, they have sort of like these satanic sort of things, and yet the whole movie's surrounded by these Christmas lights. They're like,
Yeah.
oh no, we love our kids, we're bright, we're good people. But it's like, it's funny, Americans a lot of times during Christmas display some of the most selfish behavior that you can imagine. Think of Black Friday. Everyone, they have their Thanksgiving meal and, oh, we're so happy to be with each other and with our family. And then what happens later? Someone's punching someone in the head over a PlayStation 5 or a toaster.
Right.
And this movie is sort of about like people who are consumeristic. There's all these wonderfully like naturally lit lights in the frame, which you can't light a scene entirely with Christmas lights. I've tried, and I tried on digital, which has an even wider light range than film. This movie used like a lot of China balls to get exposure, which those are, oh my god, it is like such a beautiful, cost-effective way to get lighting, by the way. Like,
sure.
get a C-stand, get like a China ball, put like a big light bulb inside of it, and it spreads around and it kind of illuminates like Christmas trees. This movie has like this very warm, kind of cozy feel to it, but the emulsion process that they used made it feel a little off. It's almost like these Christmas lights are blinding you. They're making you squint, quite literally making your eyes wide go shut, because you're surrounded by the joy of Christmas, yet the people who celebrate it, who promote it, are like some of the sickest bastards you can imagine in this movie.
Well, I also think Kubrick's making a commentary about not only America, but also mankind. I mean, we've always been very Jekyll and Hyde sort of, we pretend to be one thing, but then behind closed doors or in our heart of hearts, we're not. I mean, whether it's, Victorian England and when Robert Louis Stevenson first wrote Jekyll and Hyde about, of course, Dr. Jekyll doesn't want to be the English gentleman all the time. He'd rather get drunk and not have a responsibility and whore about and rather than being repressed. I mean, that's what that's about. But I think there's always been that. I mean, America, the savior of the world, the policeman to the world and all that. And yet we've done so many bad crimes in this world, and we've built up the greatest strength and the greatest wealth of any nation on the backs of slaves for how many centuries?
Yeah.
I mean, even children during the Industrial Revolution, we were having children basically as slave labor to save money on paying real people a decent day's wage. It's absurd, but I think, it's again the sort of the two sides of a coin, whether it's Jekyll and Hyde or the mirror images or whatever. But humanity has always been, probably our animal selves that we're trying to keep adult or human, and it's very easy here and there to lose that.
Yeah, because what these guys do when they have like this orgy is that you're letting your primal instincts out, because I mean, how many people haven't had that thought of, oh, here's this, like, how many people have not looked at Brad Pitt and been like, I want him to take me right now, or whatever actress might be in some male's head where they're like, well, I want them right now. And it's like, these are the guys who are like, well, I can do that. So let's do it. Like as I said as a joke to myself, I didn't put it in the notes yet because I don't know how funny it is, but it's like this movie is about a wife who gaslights her husband. So to get back at her, he goes to a Diddy party but gets pranked, and that's pretty much the movie.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good sort of through a modern lens take on it all, which is very clever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's Bill is stupid. He's stupid throughout this whole movie. He doesn't see things. He doesn't get what's going on. He's slow to he doesn't solve anything, as you said. He's behind the eight ball or behind the thing. He's the last person to sort of get it in many regards, including with his wife about a number of things. And, he even has to ask her what the babysitter's name is. He doesn't know these things. Yeah. He's kind of walking around clueless. And by the end, I'm not sure he's learned much because he's still talking about forever. And she's saying, no, let's not use that word. She's still going to manipulate and have control there. And I wouldn't be surprised if she leaves someday.
Yeah, well, I think that's what the movie kind of indicates, that these guys aren't going to be together forever. Yeah. And then look what happened in real life. This is one of those movies that the nice thing about Kubrick films is that when they first come out, nobody gets them. Or it gets mixed reception. Like Space Odyssey got mixed reception. He had to pull Clockwork Orange from England because he was getting death threats, and he lived in England and was a very private guy. Even The Shining got mixed reception. All those movies are universally loved. Eyes Wide Shut isn't as loved, and I'd say I don't love it. I still think there are problems with it. I think this movie needed a female perspective, because this movie, like, basically just kind of portrays women as sexual objects, which is maybe the way Bill sees women in the movie, but doesn't like outwardly say it. Because, like, if we're thinking about like the orgy scene, like, how many guys do you see? You see all the full frontal titties and bush you want, but there's no dick.
And then it's very sexist, male patriarchy kind of club. I mean, I'm sure the women even who are kind of in the power seats are still subservient to sort of the the men who call the shots, as they do in most society.
And it's like that this movie I would have liked to have seen, like, maybe the narrative shifts from Bill's story to Alice's story, but
see, but it's all about Bill's
point of view. It's kind of like his point of view.
It's his insecurity, where I think the more we know about her, it would be too equal, and I don't think that's the story here.
That's a good point. That is a good point, because the thing is, if you're having like a male director like Stanley Kubrick make it, like, one thing I see a lot of like male directors do today, where I'm like, nah, don't do that, is like they try to take things from perspectives that they don't know about.
Sure.
And look, sometimes you can do that. I mean, I think Spielberg did a wonderful job with The Color Purple. You didn't need like Spike Lee to come in and direct it, although if he made that movie, that'd be really different, but you also have people who are totally like out of their element and don't know how to address certain things. I think Stanley Kubrick, his family said he loved women and he was great with them, despite, the controversial sort of depiction of them, like, through Clockwork Orange and Eyes Wide Shut. But he doesn't maybe quite know
how to write. But I think he's indicting men there.
Yeah.
I don't think he's saying, oh, man, they're great. I think he's saying, man, they're shit.
Well, it's like he doesn't make men look great either,
That's what I'm saying. I think he's saying quite the opposite. I think women get off better in his movies because they aren't as present. And the more men in it, the more opportunities for men to be utter assholes, and I think almost all the men in his movies are.
Yeah. I mean, he usually sees the worst in humanity in his films, which is probably why he didn't direct AI minus him dying. Um, because, that's not quite his sensibility. And Kubrick's more of the childlike, optimistic view of humanity, where,
You mean
Kubrick.
Spielberg?
Yeah,
Spielberg,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, Spielberg.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Uh, where Kubrick, he's more of the pessimistic, you know, evils of humanity, whether it be Vietnam or us creating AI that destroys us because we mistreat our computers and try to kill it secretly. So then it kills us, or you have, the rapists and degenerates of society in Clockwork Orange, or if you lust over young woman like you do in Lolita, but it like goes on. And he exposes the ugliness of humanity,
yeah,
and he barely gives it any hope.
yeah.
Although this movie does end in a hopeful message where it's like, okay, this kid will probably have a good life, but this couple probably won't last. And
If
I
we don't
appreciate,
watch the
yeah.
kid taken off by those other men, again, if you were paying
Oh
attention,
shit.
I'm not so sure it's a happy ending at all. In fact, I think we're back to the circus music. The circus music that starts us off that da na 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 na
Yeah.
na 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 na. It's almost comical. It reminds me a little bit of the Curb Your Enthusiasm score.
Oh
It's
yeah.
supposed to be funny, but it's actually kind of ludicrous. So I think that what you've got there is sort of a return to maybe the same old, that Bill isn't listening, that he doesn't quite get his wife anymore, and he can't be certain about what's really going to happen because we've just watched his daughter disappear. So I don't know. I think it's a false happy ending, Mike.
I gotta rewatch that ending now. It's gonna be like rewatching the Sopranos finale, where it's gonna be like, wait, is that where they dragged her? Wait, what are those guys in the diner doing? It's gonna be a bit like that. But oh my god, if that was in there, I would like.
If David Chase hadn't sat on that fade to black for 10 seconds, I think it would have been a clear ending. I think when I saw it, I thought, oh, he's looking up and the guy's. It's called the name of the show. The name of that episode is Members Only. And the guy who he thinks is maybe the hitman goes in and he's watching him, is wearing a members only jacket. And then when he comes out, I think he's got the gun and he takes Tony Soprano out. But because it was this long period of blackness after that, people thought the cable went out or there's something else to it. I think if you just cut to black and then, that was the end, maybe a sound effect was going, hey, what the, cut that kind of thing or something. But anyway, I think Kubrick's clearer than Chase was.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw the documentary about like the making of The Sopranos and David Chase's career and all that. And like his viewpoint was he wanted to be anonymous. He wanted the audience to figure out for themselves what happened, which I think is interesting. I just don't think the execution was quite as good.
I'm getting to the point where I want filmmakers who have a definitive idea for an ending for a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say, hey, do you think Scarlett will get back together with Rhett Butler? Maybe. She's pretty tenacious.
Yeah.
She's gotten her way through most of her life and overcome all kinds of challenges, and maybe she'll seduce Rhett back into the fold. But that isn't the ending of Gone with the Wind.
No,
the ending of Gone with the Wind is he tells her, "Fuck you, baby. I'm out of here, and I don't give a shit what you do."
That's
the movie's end. You can say, well, is Donald Sutherland going to be a good father to Tim Hutton at the end of Ordinary People movie? I know you're not fond of. But I think
the Pope is.
He's been a good father so far. But I don't think Mary Tyler Moore is coming back. That's the end of the movie, and I like movies that have a little more definitive ending. So
yeah, well, this one's ominous, but it kind of gives you an idea that things won't end well for them.
Does it end up happy for them only in the sense that they're fully now ingratiated into the Illuminati? All they had to do was give away the kid. Maybe he gets to the next level. Is it worth that?
Where did they take the kid? Was it like when they walk her in the opening shot? You see like
just
two guys,
go and watch it right after we end here in a couple of minutes, because I'm telling you, they're not paying attention. She's off on her own, and she's in the aisle. And by the way, there's all the other toy items in there that suggest that. First of all, there's the bear, which is I think a callback to The Shining. There's the Magic Circle board game, which is often the term of a term from the Satanist church and everything about the magic circle of connection and everything. So, he's laying the groundwork right there at the Toy Story, showing us, again, all in front of our eyes, if our eyes are open and we're seeing this stuff, we know what he's intending. Kubrick doesn't hide stuff. He puts it all in plain sight for us to see. It's just a question, as Sherlock Holmes once said. They said, "How do you notice?" He says, "I don't. I just look. I just look where other people don't.
Yeah.
They aren't trained to look properly."
Yeah. Yeah. His movies always drop those little hints in
Oh
there.
yeah.
And
Oh
it's
yeah.
like it's rewarding because you watch it again and again and you keep noticing new things. I mean, that's why Kubrick was my favorite. I don't love all his movies, but then again, I don't think I can think of a single filmmaker where I've loved every single one of their movies. There's always some,
But he's never less than
stellar.
utterly fascinating. I mean,
Yeah.
and mostly he's stellar, but I mean, it's just his thinking and what he's doing and the way he does it. And I mean, his innovation. I mean, you look at 2001 and that still looks modern. The special effects look great today,
They do.
and I
Way
mean,
better than the CGI crap they have today.
I know it's amazing. And, the way he did the Steadicam stuff and The Shining and different things here. And I mean, I give him balls for even casting Cruise and Kim in such a controversial movie and getting them to do it.
Yeah. And also his usage of music has always
it's fantastic.
fucking incredible. Yeah, like I'll never forget. Like 2001: A Space Odyssey is my favorite movie, and I'll never forget how I discovered that film. I was having dinner with my grandparents, and I'm a kid at the time, and they told me about the plot to Space Odyssey. Like, oh, there's this evil robot named Hell, and he kills everyone. And I'm like, so this is like an episode of Lost in Space or something. They start the movie, and not when they play the classic Space Odyssey theme that we all know, but when they play Ligeti Atmospheres.
Yeah.
That's when I went, what is this? And then, of course, they play the Blue Danube, and then they play all these other.
Yep.
Yeah. I've never seen music used in a movie like that.
Yeah,
Like
well
it was like this. I'm like, oh, this is Star Wars for adults.
Yep.
And I mean, it's not Star Wars. It just happened to be in space, but that's what I
sure
thought at the time. And that was the first time I saw a movie where it's like, I don't know everything that's going on, and I don't care.
By the way, do you know that that's Stanley Kubrick's only Oscar?
Yeah, for
visual effects. That's right. He won for visual effects. He was one of the guys who created that with the other gentleman. So I know this has been fun. It's been good talking about it. I want you to get back to me tomorrow, Mike, with your report on. In fact, I'm expecting a 5-page written report for your book report on this, for your movie report on the things you didn't notice until this time.
I'll be like Kevin Costner in JFK, where like they grab the daughter. I'll just be replaying it like back and to the left.
Back and to the left.
But yeah, I guess we could give our final ratings for Eyes Wide Shut. So out of 4 Guinnesses, what would you give?
4, maybe even 5, but I give it 4.
All right, good for you. I think we needed a little more from Alice, although I do like how they take Bill's perspective. I don't like how women are overly sexualized and not really depicted as people in that movie. So for me, it was tough. I almost gave it 3.5, but I don't think it's Kubrick's great. It's a 3 out of 4. But it's a very solid 3 out of 4.
Okay.
It's because I haven't seen movies this honest and this twisted about sexual desire and about jealousy and fear and manipulation that this movie plays. So maybe that score will go a little higher. I'm not sure. I won't take some of the stuff that Mindy took to make up my mind on it. But yeah, solid movie, solid Christmas movie. If you don't like Christmas, I would say maybe do a triple feature.
Well, here's how not to do Christmas. That's what this movie helps you with.
Start with Die Hard, then go to Batman Returns, and then go to Eyes Wide Shut. And
then if you want a real scary movie that actually ends up being very life lifting and spirited in many respects, is Alistair Sim as Scrooge in A Christmas Carol. The director shot it. Yeah, the director shot it like a horror movie. And lest we forget, Charles Dickens wrote a ghost story.
Yeah.
And yet at the end, when Alistair Sim, who is a known comedic performer, turns into the happy Scrooge, it's amazing. All in one take. He's running around, somersaults and giddy. it's incredible, but it's also scary as hell.
Yeah, those ghosts actually still look kind of creepy. Like they
Oh my
actually
God! When
transparency
they're
effect
trying
they
to
use.
help the kids in the cold by throwing coins at them, and
Yeah,
because they're transparent and ghosts, they can't help the poor mother and her children. Or in A Christmas Carol, when they open up the book and the music comes in, bum 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 bum
yeah,
bum bum bum. Bum, 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 bum. It's so scary. It's like, wait,
yeah,
what am I signing up for? It's like
yeah,
not exactly for the kiddies, but
yeah.
it's a ghost story, folks, and it's a very adult story. So I
That's
love
why
that.
it
But
works
anyway,
better than the other.
Christmas Christmas with Bill and Alice will tell you what
Yeah,
not
but
to
what's their
do.
last name again? The I gotta hear it. Hartfords. Yeah,
Hartford, yeah.
Christmas with the Hartfords. And I didn't know this. The guy who played Nick Nightingale, Todd Field, he actually directed Little Children, which is a movie
That's
I
right. That's
love.
right. He's become a director now. That's right.
Mhm. And
And
Tar.
Leon Vitali, who is the actor who's playing Red Cloak in here, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is Kubrick's longtime personal assistant.
Maybe he's his fluffer. I don't know.
Jesus Christ. And on that note,
Yeah.
we'll follow you to the end of the rainbow.
Now there's an idea.
That's a pretty, there you go. That was a pretty good imitation of that.
What if they go? What if everyone in the Wizard of Oz goes for the yellow brick road, and at the end of the road is the orgy party?
Those flying monkeys are,
even fucking Toto's in the party, but yeah.
no. He's humping one of the red shoes.
Oh God. Well, I mean, if Tarantino's there, there's never mind. Okay, I'm gonna lose
Lord.
my job if I. But yeah, there'd be some residue on those shoes. But anyways, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
If
you.
you guys liked what you saw, please like, subscribe, comments, and all that. Hopefully, I'll have another episode before Christmas, but we'll see because I know everyone has to get home for the holidays. As do I. Although I am at home for the holidays, I am hosting the holidays at my
Oh,
home.
very nice. Good for you.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Well, Merry Christmas, Mike.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you. Stay out of orgy parties. Well, you don't want some ditty shit going on. And we'll see you guys later. Thanks a lot. Oh, like and subscribe to YPA Reviews, ypareviews.com, YPA Reviews on X and Instagram, and on TikTok it's YPA Reviews Chicago, because for some crazy reason someone already had YPA Reviews. I'm going to sue them.
Out there.
Yeah. All right. That's enough for now. We'll see you later.